Section 2. Interest rate contracts. In this section, we will focus on the interest rate futures and forward contracts. An interest rate futures contract is a futures contract which has its underlying asset dependent solely on the value of an interest rate. Interest rate futures were pioneered by Chicago Board of Trade in 1975 in response to a growing market need for tools that could protect against the sharp and frequent swings in the cost of money. One can use such futures contracts to hedge against or to speculate on changes in interest rates. The long position profits when the interest rate falls, and the short position profits when the interest rate rises. Let's first introduce a simple interest rate forward contract, repurchase agreement. A repurchase agreement, or repo for short, is an important kind of forward contract which entails selling a security with an agreement to buy it back at a fixed price. That is, a sale coupled with a long position in the forward contract. The underlying security is held as collateral by the counterparty, who has bought the security and agreed to sell it back at a fixed price. The counterparty is said to have entered into a reverse repo. If the borrower does not repay the loan, the lender keeps the security. Most repos are overnight and are common for government securities. A long-term repo is called a term repo. Here's an example of the repurchase agreement. Suppose the trader enters into a one-week repo for a 6-month T-bill with a face value of $1 million. The current dollar price of the T-bill is 95.72, and the trader agrees to repurchase it in 1 week for the dollar price of 95.83. Determine the repo rate, or the loan rate. The trader effectively borrows money at a 1-week repo rate of 95.83 divided by 95.72 minus 1. Note that this rate is not annualized. With the repurchase agreement, the trader receives cash today with the promise to return cash plus interest in a week, and the T-bill serves as collateral. Next, we'll talk about the Treasury bill futures contract. The T-bill futures contract is based on a 13-week T-bill with a face value of $1 million. The short position of a T-bill futures agrees to deliver to the buyer at the delivery date a T-bill with 13 weeks remaining to maturity and a face value of $1 million. The futures price is the price at which the T-bill would be sold or purchased, but not quoted as such. The contract allows for delivery of 89, 90, or 91-day T-bills after price adjustment. Recall that the T-bills are quoted in the spot market in terms of the annualized discount yield. In contrast, the T-bill futures contract is quoted not directly in terms of the discount yield, but instead on an index basis, namely the International Monetary Market Index, IMM index for short. This index price can be calculated using the following formula. For example, if the discount yield is 8%, by the above formula, the index price is 92. At the delivery date, the price that the buyer of the 13-week T-bill underlying the futures contract must pay is the so-called invoice price, which can be calculated as follows, where T could be equal to 89, 90, or 91 as appropriate for the T-bill delivered. Let's take a look at an example. Suppose the index price for T-bill futures contract is 92.52. Can you determine the invoice price if the T-bill to be delivered has 91 days to maturity? With the index price formula given in the previous slides, it is easy to calculate the discount yield for this T-bill futures contract. which is 7.48%. Then, substituting this discount yield to the invoice price formula, we're able to obtain the corresponding invoice price. Note that this T-bill to be delivered has 91 days to maturity. One of the important concepts that related to the T-bill futures contract is the implied repo rate. It is the rate of return which can be earned from taking a short position in a debt instrument futures contract, and simultaneously buying the debt instrument deliverable against that futures contract with borrowed funds. Here, we focus on the implied repo rate involving the use of T-bill futures. Suppose that the futures contract expires in T years, its underlying T-bill matures in T star years, where T star is greater than T, and the difference between them is 90 days. Let ST and ST star denote the continuously compounded spot rates for maturities T and T star respectively. Then, the futures price of the T-bill in dollar per $1 face value can be calculated as follows. More precisely, the first term is the present value of the $1 face value at time T star, and the second term brings forward the present value to the future time T. Rearranging the terms, we can obtain the implied repo rate, ST. From the formula, it is clear that the rate is implied by the futures price F and the spot rate, ST star. Arbitrage opportunities exist if the implied repo rate differs from the actual T-bill rate for maturity T. Let R be the continuously compounded forward rate between time T and time T star. Then, $1 at time T will worth exponential R times T star minus T at time T star. This amount can be alternatively obtained by using the spot rates ST star and ST. Equating the two expressions, we can solve the forward rate R. Then, we can also write F in terms of R, which leads to the implied repo rate in terms of R as well. Now let's take a look at an example. Suppose the dollar price of a T-bill maturing in 138 days is 95, and the futures price for a 90-day T-bill maturing in 48 days is 96.5, which is also given in dollar price. Can you determine the implied repo rate, assuming that it is continuously compounded? First, let's convert the time given in days in terms of years. Assume that there are 365 days in a year. Then, with the given dollar price of the 138-day T-bill, we can obtain the spot rate as T star. Thus, the implied repo rate can be calculated using the formula derived earlier. Note that 95.6 is the futures price of the T-bill with face value $100, and we have to convert it to the futures price of the T-bill with face value $1. Up to now, we have introduced the two kinds of interest rate contracts, the repurchase agreement and the T-bill futures. We'll continue this section in next lesson.